I am here and it's Friday night. I hope you're about to have a great weekend. I want to talk about something that I think is really important that was illustrated rather brilliantly by the New York Times this week. The New York Times, among others, but I think is really representative of a media failure that's dominated and consumed the Trump era, which seems at least to be coming to a close, at least in terms of the presidency. Let me put a tweet up from Federalist contributor Kelsey Bowler. There you go. Look at this. All right. According to the New York Times, it was Trump's fault. The polls were wrong. So you can see from the New York Times, they said, in the last few years, Republican voters seem to have become less willing to respond to polls. Now, here's the important part. Maybe that shouldn't be surprising, given Trump's attacks on the media, science, and other institutions. Well, that's interesting because, funny enough, Trump is being blamed here for being the messenger, right? So the media is using Trump as a scapegoat to avoid talking about the single issue here, which is that media failure is what makes people distrustful of media. Polling failure is what makes people distrustful of polls. So to the extent that we think the failure, let's just take this argument to be true, that there's these shy Trump voters that are unwilling to pick up the phone when pollsters call, or are unwilling to respond to media polls because they don't want to talk to somebody who says they're doing a poll for NBC or the Washington Post. Let's just say that for the sake of argument, that's true. And it may be true, but there are ways for polls to adjust to that. You can just ask Trafalgar, a Susquehanna. There are ways to accurately measure support for Donald Trump. We know that. We know there are accurate ways to measure support for Donald Trump because Trafalgar and Susquehanna did it. Set that aside. The New York Times' argument is that people, because Trump has poisoned their minds against polls in the media, they're just not responding to polls anymore. Now, a more accurate way to write this sentence, and let me put it up again, maybe that shouldn't be surprising given Trump's attacks on the media, science, and other institutions. All right, here's how you should rewrite that. Maybe that shouldn't be surprising given the media and the polling industry's failures to assess support for Donald Trump. That's the obvious way to look at this, and yet the media blames Trump. This is something that happens again and again when the media discusses institutional distrust and the public's declining institutional trust, the public's declining trust and confidence and faith in American institutions like science, as the New York Times puts it. Again, you're blaming people and you're blaming Donald Trump for poisoning people against the institution of science, when scientists are claiming, for instance, that men are women, or men are women, or scientists are claiming that crowds are dangerous because they spread coronavirus, except for the crowds that are out there to protest in the thousands, if not the hundreds. Those are okay because racism is a public health issue. Is it Donald Trump's fault that there's declining trust in our institutions, or is it our institutions' fault? And this is what happens from the media. They exist in these bubbles and they're insulated. And after 2016, there was this fleeting moment of recognition of their own insulation and their own failures. That left as soon as they discovered that they could start attacking Trump for his alleged ties to Russia, and that they could build this really elaborate theory. So it lasted a few weeks, basically. I don't think that's even really happening anymore. There's definitely some hand-wringing over how wrong the polls were, but there's really no introspection on the media's part at all. Instead, we're seeing these fingers being pointed at Trump himself. And this is such a fundamental misunderstanding of what's happening in this country. If you think Donald Trump is what causes people to be wary of pollsters, if you think Donald Trump is what causes people to have declining trust in the media, Donald Trump has absolutely exposed the extent of corruption, and he's absolutely helped people prioritize and focus on their distrust in institutions like the press. Absolutely, there's no question about it. He has heightened the level of he's heightened the level of awareness that people have. 100%. Absolutely, that's the case. But people have reasonable justification to distrust the institutions. What Donald Trump is highlighting, and sometimes there may be rhetorical excesses, what he's highlighting are absolutely real problems. They're absolutely real problems. So then again, the media, rather than recognizing that and saying maybe we do legitimately have problems, maybe people legitimately do have reasons to distrust us, no, that's not what they're doing. They're saying people are less trusting in us because of Donald Trump. Now, another thing that they're completely avoiding discussing in this particular argumentation, if you consider this logic, they are also failing to consider entirely their own role in creating this punishing cancel culture that exists. Again, maybe people are hesitant to say they're voting for Donald Trump when the media spent years and before Donald Trump saying that republicanism or conservatism was necessarily bigoted, it was necessarily racist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can go down the line and then ratchet that up when it came to Donald Trump. So as that's happening, the cancel culture, so-called cancel culture, is accelerating, and people are being punished more frequently for less serious transgressions, less serious infractions, less serious political incorrectness. And oftentimes it's not even a matter of political incorrectness. It's a matter of supporting Donald Trump or something to that extent, or supporting biological essentialism, something of that nature. So as this is happening, the media is saying that Trump is necessarily racist, sexist, and bigoted, and his supporters are as well, we also have the development of a cancel culture, and the corporate media stoked that. The media amplified that. They took what was coming out of the pipeline from academia and then helped import it into corporate culture and into their own newsrooms. The media played a huge role in this, And we have a very chilled culture of discourse in people's communities and in their neighborhoods right now. And you can look at survey data that shows that. Looks like we had a little technical difficulty there. You can look at survey data that shows that, and it bears it out completely. And the media, again, is saying, yeah, Donald Trump has stoked all of this distrust in the media, and that's why people might hesitate to tell pollsters they support Donald Trump. It has nothing to do with anything else. And the thing is, I don't even think this is intentional. I think this just speaks to their utter ignorance of the bubble that they live in and their utter ignorance of what people think and believe outside of that bubble. It's absolutely pathetic. It's completely at the heart of so many problems that we have. And again, I say this all the time. If there was one thing that gave me hope in the fraught aftermath of the 2016 election, it was, if the election of the host of The Celebrity Apprentice, if the country elects him over the former Secretary of State, who was basically being coronated by the media machine in the days of leading up to the election, if the media can't take that seriously and really do some meaningful internal reforms, then they never will. Well, how stupid was I? They clearly never will. And with some luck, the new media, the splintering of the media landscape that has given rise to new media outlets and given power to new voices, whether they be in podcasting or on Substack and Patreon, it's happening at an opportune time, and it's absolutely fueled by this. But the power of the corporate press is diminished, but it's not diminished enough that they aren't still dominant. So we still have this problem, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. Thankfully, new voices have been empowered to call it out and deal with it. And thankfully, people are starting to recognize that what the corporate press is telling them is not necessarily accurate. And they are looking to new sources of information, and they are distrustful of the information that they're getting from the corporate press. But, I'm not overly optimistic that the corporate press is going to reform itself anytime soon, even though that is desperately badly needed. They're fomenting so much division, and while they point the finger at Trump supporters and Trump himself for fomenting that division, they're playing a massive role in it. And there does appear to be no end in sight. And on that happy note, I hope you all have a great Friday and a great weekend. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to subscribe and to like the videos. That helps so much. And you can follow The Federalist at FDRLST. Of course, please stay tuned to Federalist.com for breaking news and commentary. Until next time, I'm Emily Jashinsky. Thanks so much for tuning in.